Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you. We're going to try one more time. Good afternoon. There is always something that's very good about an audience that understands call and response. There's some places you go and you do that and they're like, what's going on? But part of our history means we know what call and response means. My name is Dr. Joan Reed. I'm Dean for Diversity and Community Partnership at Harvard Medical School, and I want to welcome you to this, our 10th annual Harvard-affiliated residency showcase. The mission of my office, the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership, is to advance diversity inclusion in health, biomedical, behavioral, and STEM fields in ways that build individual and institutional capacity to achieve excellence, to foster innovation, and ensure equity in health locally, nationally, and globally. Today's program is part of our DICP, my office, Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership, Visiting Clerkship Program. Some of you may know it as VCP. And for more than 30 years, the VCP has been a model of offering outstanding medical students, particularly from those groups that are underrepresented in medicine, an opportunity to participate in externships at our Harvard Medical School affiliated hospital. And since its inception, more than 1,900 students have participated in this program. The goal of today's event is to provide students an opportunity to meet and network with Harvard-affiliated residency program training directors, attending physicians, fellows, and residents. And it's our hope that you will learn more about the residency programs in our space and what is offered here across our Harvard-affiliated hospitals to this meeting today. I sincerely thank the co-sponsors of today's event, those individuals from the various affiliated hospitals and residency programs and other offices within the hospitals, individuals who volunteer their time to meet students and offer their advice. But I want to give a special thanks and acknowledge certain offices or programs. The Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center Office of Multicultural Affairs. If there's anybody from these offices, you can go like this. All right. Boston Children's Hospital Office of Health Equity and Inclusion. Brigham and Women's Hospital Center for Diversity and Inclusion. Cambridge Health Alliance Department of Internal Medicine. Massachusetts Eye and Ear Infirmary. Massachusetts General Hospital Center for Diversity and Inclusion. McLean Hospital Office of the Chief Academic Officer. Mount Auburn Hospital Department of Internal Medicine. Today's program is being held in a hybrid format with over 400 students participating, more than 120 here and more than 300 virtually. Together, you represent over 150 US and Canadian medical schools from across 45 states, provinces, and territories. We're also joined by more than 50 faculty, physicians, and residents from across our affiliated hospitals. All are looking forward to having a robust conversation about your interests and how those interests might align with the opportunities that are available in Boston healthcare community. As we begin today's program, I have just a few housekeeping notes. The web meeting portion of this residency showcase is being recorded and will be posted on the DICP website. The breakout discussions, however, will not be recorded. For those of you joining us virtually, your chat and microphones have been disabled. And while you're not able to take questions from you during the virtual component, that component of the program, You will have an opportunity to ask your questions during the breakout sessions that will begin at 4. Those of you who have joined us in person will have an opportunity to ask questions after the panel members have given their remarks. Just raise your hand, like really raise your hand, none of this stuff. Really raise your hand, and we'll bring you a mic. For all participants, this day is about you. Ask us hard questions, we're ready to answer. There is no one here to evaluate you, to take notes on you, to judge your potential candidacy. This is a day to serve you, answer your questions, and help you in making connections. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Alden Landry, who's going to be the moderator for today's showcase. Dr. Landry is an assistant dean in the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership, DICP, an emergency medicine physician at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, and an associate professor at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Landry.
Thank you, Dr. Reed, for the introduction. I first want to say that Dr. Reed mentioned that we have over 400 students participating. The interesting thing, though, is 10 years ago when we first did that, we barely scratched 60 students to come to our event. So the fact that we have 120 people joining us in person, over 300 joining us virtually, just shows the growth of this program and how much it's had an impact over the past 10 years. That we've kept sustaining this program, knowing that students are going to come, they're going to learn, they're going to get to engage with some of the trainees and faculty. And in turn, those individuals who are the students will become the residents that you're going to see on many of the panels that you're going to hear from, or they're going to be in the breakout rooms. So just really happy that we've stuck with this program for 10 years. And thank you, Dr. Reed, for all of your support as we've moved the mission of the DICP forward and brought on the showcase as part of the work that we do with the VCP and the DICP. So we're going to have a pretty broad discussion of a lot of topics. I know that we're going to have 4 hours together, but I can guarantee we're not going to answer every question of yours during the course of these 4 hours. So in light of that, what we have been doing over the past, I'd say 4 or 5 years is we've been recording conversations with program directors from the various Harvard affiliated residency programs. And these conversations are our webinars that we do as part of the VCP webinar series. And if you don't find an answer to that question that you have in mind, go back and take a look at our VCP webinar series. All of that information is cataloged on our website. And I think it's a great place for you to get those additional questions that you may be looking for answered. For the students who are joining us who may not be 3rd or 4th year medical students, this is a great opportunity for you to learn. And hopefully this is an opportunity for you to feel encouraged to come and rotate with us for future rotations with the DICP. Now, on to today's program. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of how things are going to flow. We're going to have a couple of panels, but before we do our panels, we're going to have introductions from those hospitals that Dr. Reed mentioned who are supporting the residency showcase that we're having today. So we're going to hear from Dr. Galen Henderson, who's the Director of Neurocritical Care and Neuroscience Intensive Care Unit at Brigham and Women's Hospital. He is also the lead for their Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership. We're going to hear from Dr. Mary Lou Jean-Baptiste, who is the Director of Minority Affairs for Cambridge Health Alliance. We're going to hear from Dr. Danielle Ovechki, who is the Inclusion Officer for the Department of Medicine at BIDMC. We're going to hear from Dr. Valerie Ward, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer at Boston Children's Hospitals. We're going to hear from Dr. Wendy Macias Constantopoulos, who is the Vice Chair of Diversity, Health Equity, and Inclusion and Director of the Center of Social and Health Sciences at Massachusetts General Hospital. And last but not least, we're going to hear from Dr. Katie Goldlist, who is the Associate Program Director for the Department of Internal Medicine at Mount Auburn Hospital. So first, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Henderson. You're up first.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say welcome. I'm really, really excited to see all of you here this afternoon. For those who are here in person and those who are here online, you know, I think this is a fantastic opportunity to look at our hospitals, to get your questions answered. I remember when I was a medical student and I was curious about the system here. One thing I was concerned about is would I fit in? You know, this place had an air about it. And I said, look, I'm a person, I was a little different. You know, I was from Mississippi. I was from the Mississippi Delta, home of sweet tea and barbecue. I went to an HBCU and I said, man, would I fit in here? And I came and I was shocked that I would have my career here. I was shocked that I found a home here. Uh, the place was really supportive, much more than I ever expected. This is a place for research, and this is the kind of place that produces leaders. You know, medicine is very, very big, and there are many opportunities that you all will have. But for those who want to lead organizations, lead research institutions, this is the place to learn how to grow your brain muscle. I'm a neurologist, that is, and flex your brain muscle. This place will train you. This is the best training in the world. You know, when people think about New York, they think about Wall Street and all the theaters. When you think about Miami, you think about you know, or Florida, you think of Miami and Disney. When you think about California, it's about making movies. When you think about Boston, it's about education, specifically medical education. This is the place in the world where people come to learn and to grow. So I can't say more about my hospital specifically, but I think the entire system is incredibly supportive and safe for people to come and be who they are themselves and be very comfortable here. So I don't want to take up too much time because I know there are others. Dr. Landry, Dr. Reed, thank you.
Shout out to HBCUs and HSIs. I appreciate that. I'm from Texas. We could have a discussion about that barbecue comment. I'll leave that alone for now. Next is going to be Dr. Jean-Baptiste coming from Cambridge Health Alliance.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
And I'm so delighted to be here. And I really appreciate that invite us to talk on behalf of CHA, Cambridge Health Alliance. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about CHA, maybe a little bit of my journey, but not that much. I am, as you can tell, I'm from Haiti. I have an accent. So I grew up in Haiti, and after going to medical school, decided I would come to get some education, but go back again to Haiti, but that never happened, I can tell. I find my home at CHA because CHA has a lot of value really of sitting with me. So CHA, it's a network of 2 hospitals and 16 neighborhood clinic. And we offer comprehensive care, and we are affiliated with Harvard, and we also affiliated with Tufts. And through those 2 institutions, we offer multiple training programs. We offer a training program in internal medicine, primary care, and that's where I train. And then we also offer psychiatry, oral health, and then to Tufts, we offer family medicine. So there are other trainees, they are as important as us, but for the sake of today, we're just going to mention those 4. So what do we do at CHA? So we are mostly doing primary care, psychiatry, and we really reach out to underserved community. So the refugees, the immigrants, the people who suffer with addiction, and people who are experiencing homelessness. So we also offer advocacy program because that's what we do. It's advocate for the patient so they can get better healthcare. And so the resident has an opportunity to get a training in it. And they also go and then to testify at State House to try to improve the condition of the people we're caring for. The addiction program, it's a comprehensive program where addiction and sometimes psychiatry merge together, internal medicine. We offer different group visits. We have Suboxone group in different sites. We also have addiction group. As far as primary care, we kind of offered multiple comprehensive care to the primary care, working closely with psychiatry and psychology. So most of the clinic have those people on site. And some bigger sites have more going on. So you can one-stop fit all. Like bigger site, like the way where I work, not only we have internal medicine and family medicine, but we also have oral health. So it's more convenient for the patient. We also offer group visit, and soon we'll be offering cooking. I don't want to say cooking lesson, but we'll be cooking healthy with the patient and within their culture. So we are so happy that we are able to offer that. As part of outreach, and also I just have to mention, in order to take care of so many immigrants, you need a very good interpreter services. And we are lucky to have one, the best one. And as far as outreach, we offer outreach to different communities, and we have a volunteer outreach, but myself and a small organization, we also outreach to Haitian community and other communities, to the church. We do education, and I also took on myself to do a radio show on Saturday. So which is to whatever the patient cannot get to in the clinic. So we try to educate them because most of them being first time in the system are lost. So our goal is to like introduce them so they can advocate them for themselves better. I'm not going to be too long. I'm just staying right there. And I also forget to say the hospital, the two hospitals together is 277 beds. So I'm not going to be longer than that, but I'll be around. And we have a team working here. So in case you have any more questions, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Next, Dr. Danielle Ovechki.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm so excited. I have to kind of keep my feet on the floor. It's such an honor and a privilege to be here with you. Thank you so much to Doctors Reed and Laundrie for inviting me. And I'm really here just to tell you, first of all, I want to tell you something that I think just doesn't get said enough. And if anybody has ever heard me say this once, they've heard me say this 1,000 times. Being a doctor is the best thing you will ever do with your life, okay? It is the best thing I've ever done besides get married and have kids. And I have 3 kids and have as many kids as you want. I would have had 4, but my husband said no, so get that out the way, okay? And so number 1, so what you have before you is the incredible opportunity to craft your future. And that's why we're here. We want to give you everything you need to know about us so you can craft your future. We want you to be unafraid about coming here to Boston, to our Harvard hospitals, checking us out and being like, yep, I own the space. I belong here. I could come if I wanted to come, and I will excel. So I'm here representing Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. Anybody knows me too knows how much I love my hospital. So I'll tell you a little bit about it. We were founded more than 100 years ago to serve the poor, the indigent, and those who could not get care elsewhere. And we do that still to this very day. In the 1960s, we became even more intense about that. We partnered with DIMIC, which was founded in 1860. And we actually were one of the first hospitals to say we were going to leave our academic ivory tower and go to red-lined areas and see those patients, and those patients would have a hotline to come see us to get the care that they need. And that persists to this day. So because of that, even though we're part of a huge system, 13 hospitals, Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and we take referrals from all over Massachusetts, from all over this United States, still 40% of our patients are of color. And that is very, very something I take very proudly. A minority of our patients have commercial insurance, which is why we can have such a diverse patient population. And this is something that means so much to me. We send patients back home to Cape Verde if they can't get insurance to get cared for. We keep homeless patients a few more days to get to their first home they will ever have in years. This is the kind of hospital that I work in. And we don't stop and we don't rest in our history. In the past 3 years or 4 years, we've increased the number of URIM trainees we match by 247%, and it has remained sustained. So right now, one out of 4 or 5 of our trainees is underrepresented in medicine. And we're very proud of that as well. And we just opened a new building, which is incredibly state-of-the-art. And what makes me the proudest thing about being in that new building, my first weekend on, it's gorgeous, by the way. No patient believes that they're in the hospital. I walk in, who's my first patient? A house cleaner. And she says, Danielle, Dr. Danielle, where am I? Is this a hotel? Where am I? My next patient of color on the verge of homelessness, in this gorgeous space, and tells me, I am so glad I could be here to recover and to heal. And that's what we're about, is being a respite for our patients, because we know society is unequal. They've been punished enough. And when they get to us, we have to make sure we can give them that respite that they need. So I'm very proud of that as well. And the main thing I want to tell you about BIDMC is when you come to train with us, you don't have to choose. We have hundreds of millions of dollars in NIH funding, research, cutting edge research. Every time I see a patient, I just wanted to see a patient who got a cardiac cath. I go, what is that thing on your wrist? I never saw it before. We're always innovating to hold pressure inside of the radial cath. It's constant innovating, constant striving for excellence. So we really see ourselves as there's no need to choose. We are a roaring heart of equity with academic excellence. And that is the message I want to leave with for you from BIDMC. Last thing I always end with, when I was in your shoes, so I come from a family, my dad's dad was a pig farmer, my dad believed in education. We got here to this country so poor, almost homeless, and I never thought I would ever be a doctor. So I spent my whole time like begging, please let me in, please let me in, please let me in. And I was so scared when I got here that I just didn't belong. But guess what, guys? Now we have so much compelling data that says that we need you. We need you in medicine. And I think when I was going through, that message wasn't strong enough. We need every diverse mind. We need everyone with the lived experiences of our patients to truly care for our patients. So I want to end with, go get them.
Thank you, Danielle. We're going to go from my clinical home to my colleague in emergency medicine. So next up is Dr. Macias Constantinopoulos.
So hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So happy to be here. Honor to see all of you, happy faces, ready to go. Very hard act to follow. I'm just going to say ditto to everything you said. But truly, I'm excited to be here, and on behalf of Mass General Hospital, on behalf of our Center for Diversity and Inclusion, I welcome all of you. I welcome all of you from the 22 residencies that we have at Mass General, as well as all of our fellowships. We are certainly looking for you to come and be part of us and walk our hallways and help us take care of patients. I have a few notes here because this is my first time giving this welcoming talk, but I just want you to know that like BIDMC, Mass General Hospital also has a history of really caring about those who are amongst us, regardless of what their social status may be. And we have been around now for over 200 years. And our founders, back in the early 1800s, they established the hospital here in Boston. And their motto was, when in distress, every man becomes our neighbor. And that's really a mission that has continued through today, with many efforts across the institution, many resources being invested into ensuring that we are not only providing excellent training and education to all people from all walks of life who bring with them the lived experiences that our patients can relate to, but also making sure that we are providing equitable, safe, quality care for all our patients, regardless of their ability to pay. I am here today joined by some of the amazing leaders from the Center for Diversity and Inclusion at Mass General. And I am just going to call out a couple of names: Jocelyn Carter, Dr. Carter. Hi, I didn't see you. So she's one of the associate directors for trainees, and you'll be meeting her later on today, as well as Sandra Ordóñez Peña, who is our program manager. Elsa, who is amazing. Like, she is your go-to person, anything you want, need, and she coordinates everything. I don't know how anything happens without her. Elena Olson is our executive director at the Center for Diversity and Inclusion at MGH. She is not here with us. She's at a wedding apparently in Italy. So, someday she might come back to us. But she is an amazing advocate for UIM students and trainees and faculty members. CDI has for over 22 years now been fully devoted to ensuring that we are creating an environment at MGH where every member of our community from every walk of life feels like they can excel, like they belong, like they're being included, like they have a voice. So I encourage you today to really learn about Mass General Hospital, to learn about our residency programs. I believe we have a surgery resident here today who will be speaking in one of the panels, and one of our program directors from the Department of Internal Medicine, also Dr. Bias, will be speaking with us. So really encourage you to ask as many questions as possible, to get to know us, to get to know what we have to offer you. And we are looking forward to hearing from all of you, each and every one of you, as you are really trying to hone in on not only what specialty you're going into, because I know there's a category of you out there where you're still kind of, trying to figure out which specialty you're going into. Please reach out to us, ask questions, get to know us, and feel free to call upon any of us for a few minutes of our time. I certainly try to make myself available from an emergency medicine perspective. There's no better specialty, but that's my opinion. And the person who's about to follow me will probably contradict that, but welcome to all of you, and thank you for taking the time on a Saturday to be here. Like many of us will say, when I arrived here at the Harvard institutions, I did my residency at the Brigham and at Mass General and Children's Hospital. We do a 4-hospital consortium for emergency medicine. And it was incredibly daunting, right? You're walking into these spaces where you never thought you would end up walking into, where you never felt that you would belong. And I have been here now for 20 years, and I do feel like I belong. And I hope that all of you find your home as well.
She's not wrong about the specialty part, by the way. Next is going to be Dr. Valerie Ward from Boston Children's Hospital.
It's so nice to be here. Thank you, Dean Reed. Thank you, Dr. Alden, Landry, and thank you to all of my colleagues who have already spoken. How am I going to follow this? But you know what I heard? In each person's message to you today, I heard a theme of belonging and will I feel like I'm included? I represent Boston Children's Hospital. I'm a senior vice president and the chief equity and inclusion officer. I'm a pediatric radiologist, probably the best specialty. And I'm very happy there. I'm also from Massachusetts, so I'm someone who's from here and has stayed here. And I want to say all of you belong. So we really have to change our thinking, just like my colleagues have already said. But what we're doing at Boston Children's Hospital is our senior executive leadership, our faculty, our staff, our trainees, we're all going through a training called a bystander and upstander training on a yearly basis. We all did it as a hospital together in 2021. We did it in interactive mode on Zoom in the middle of a pandemic. And now we're refreshing the learnings. How do we make our working environment, our learning environment in our hospital setting more inclusive? So we're trying to get better. We're working on ourselves. So if you come to our hospital, you're going to hear about our commitment to health equity, to diversity, to inclusion in our Boston Children's Declaration on EDI. We take it very seriously. We have 6 goals. We have under each goal many actionable steps that we've put in place, including how do we remove bias, discrimination, racism from our clinical algorithms, from our policies, from just how we do our day-to-day work. We also track metrics. So we are holding ourselves accountable to make certain that we are removing healthcare disparities, safety disparities. We've got safety outcome metrics, quality metrics related to health equity. And we're actually trying our very best to lead in this work nationally. So we're comparing ourselves with other pediatric hospitals in this space. But as people, when we work day to day with our residents and our other allied health professionals, we have an open door policy in the Office of Health Equity and Inclusion that I lead, that if you feel like a professionalism event occurred, then we ask people to file it as a safety event. So we take this very seriously, whether it's respect, whether it's discrimination or bias in the workplace. So as far as being a working environment and a learning environment that's truly inclusive, these are the actionable steps that we put in place at Boston Children's to make a difference, so that we really can say that we're walking the walk and talking the talk of the declaration on EDI that we put on our external website. So you can go to our website and read it. Okay, so it's out there for the world to see what we are doing internally to make our environment more inclusive. I want to talk about something else. In doing health equity work now for almost 20 years, we have a new initiative, a major initiative at Boston Children's. In addition to our Office of Health Equity and Inclusion, we have the Sandra L. Fenwick Institute for Pediatric Health Equity and Inclusion. This is the next evolution of the work. It is a philanthropic institute at Boston Children's where we do and we fund other people's health equity research. We do our own. We do inclusive initiatives, including a leadership development program for professionals to learn how to do equity, diversity, and inclusion work. And we also make public policy recommendations off of the evidence. And so this is exciting. A hospital, I believe, like Boston Children's, that dedicates resources and prioritizes health equity, diversity, and inclusion is taking the work seriously, and I'm proud to work there. And so please reach out to me either in the capacity of our Office of Health Equity and Inclusion or in our Fenwick Institute, or just because you want to be a pediatric radiologist. I'd love to talk to anyone who would like to talk about any of those disciplines. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ward. And last but certainly not least is Dr. Goldlist.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Dr. Reed, Dr. Landry, and thank you everybody else that spoke before me. I do agree that theme of belonging is really evident, and I'm happy to represent Mount Auburn Hospital. I'm a geriatrician there and the Associate Program Director of the Internal Medicine Residency. So similar to what other people have said, in terms of our hospital, our history was founded by people that prioritize diversity, equity. Our hospital was founded in 1886 by a Civil War nurse, Emily Parsons, who came from an abolitionist family who supported Abraham Lincoln. And I really feel like that that foundation of our hospital is still there today. And we are a really small, close-knit hospital, which I think differentiates us from the other Harvard hospitals. We only have 220 beds. We have residency programs in internal medicine and radiology, and we're affiliated with the BIDMC surgery and OB-GYN residencies.
So you might not be able to tell, but I'm Canadian and I have been in Boston for 5 years now, and I've really found this close-knit family and home at Mount Auburn. It's a really wonderful place to be at, and I think one of our biggest strengths is the diversity in our residency program. In our internal medicine residency program in particular, we have people from all over the states and all over the world, and Dr. Okali is representing us today as part of the panels. So thank you all for being here again. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And I think geriatrics is the best. So thanks.
I want to say thank you to all the hospitals for being here once again. Thank you to the representatives for their warm welcome, and just giving you a little bit of an insight into what the hospitals are like. Before we transition to our resident panel, I just want to give a special thank you to the staff of the DICP for putting this on. Many of them aren't even in the room because they're outside helping to move the program along, but to Lynn Fulton John, to Ying Wang, and to all the others who are here helping to make sure that the day goes smoothly. Thank you so much for making time on your Saturday to be here. We truly, truly appreciate you. We're going to move now into our resident panel, and this is always an interesting time because the residents are going to give their honest perspectives about their experiences. So I'm going to bring up Dr. Nina Eza, who is going to be our moderator for the resident panel. Dr. Eza is a fourth-year dual resident physician in the Harvard Combined Dermatology Residency and the Brigham and Women's Hospital Internal Medicine Residency Program. Nina, thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to introduce our lovely and wonderful panel of residents who are really here to give their honest perspective and experience, how they navigated the application season, as well as their time here in Boston and why they chose their program. So I'm going to invite up our panel of 7 residents. You can have a seat. Can have a seat wherever. All right, so we're going to get started. We want to be mindful of everyone's time. We have a lot of exciting information to share with you all, but we are going to keep it brief to honor so that we're able to give a diverse perspective for each question. So I'm going to have every resident introduce themselves. If you could please say your name, your hometown or where you call home, where you trained for medical school, and pass it on to the next resident next to you. So we can start with Juliet.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Oh, perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Juliet Musabeyezu. I am, oh, perfect. Stay loud over here. Fantastic. So my name is Juliet Musabeyezu. I am from Kigali, Rwanda, born and raised. I grew up between Rwanda and South Africa and then moved to Boston for college and have stayed here now for 12 years. A feat that I didn't think I would end up doing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I trained for medical school here at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Landry was actually my personal advisor for all 5 years of that experience.
No, that's it. Great.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Nonya Okoli. I'm currently doing internal medicine at Mount Auburn Hospital. I'm a PGY3. In terms of where I'm from, so I was actually born in the US, Houston, Texas. I'm sure you can tell from my accent. For about 2 weeks, and then I moved to Nigeria. I'm Nigerian as well. And then afterwards, I lived in Nigeria for 6 years and then moved to London, where I primarily grew up. I went to Imperial College Medical School, and then 2 years ago, I decided to return back to the US, and I think I'm going to stay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Candice Childs. I am an intern at Massachusetts General Hospital and also McLean in the psychiatry program. I am from Savannah, Georgia, so I'm excited to be from the South, but I've relocated here and I loved it so far, and I trained at the Medical College of Georgia.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is, good afternoon, Nina. My name is Stephanie Conyers. I am a current PGY4 at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. I'm originally from Maplewood, New Jersey, and I went to Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School for medical school.
Hi, everyone. I'm Edgar Garcia Saiz. I'm a second-year resident in pediatrics at Boston Children's Hospital. I know. I am in the health equity and advocacy track, and I would love to talk more about that. But that means I spend a bit more time at Boston Medical Center, which is also a fantastic place and one of my favorite parts of my residency. I was born in Cuba and raised in Miami, Florida. Went to med school here at HMS with Juliet, actually. And I remember sitting with Juliet and talking about how we weren't going to stay here for residency. And here we are on this panel talking to you all. And happy to answer any questions you all have about peds, diversity in peds, and health equity and advocacy.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Fallon Dempsis. I'm originally from Eritrea, but I call LA home. I'm a PGY2 integrated vascular surgery resident at Mass General. And I went to Dartmouth for medical school. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience. Y'all out here, okay, okay.
Yeah, please stop for her. Hi, my name is Jose Henriquez. I'm a third-year internal medicine resident at Cambridge Health Alliance. And I was born and raised and medically trained at Puerto Rico.
Thank you all for your introductions. And just to complete my introduction, I'm originally from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I trained at the University of Wisconsin. So any Midwesterners out there, I'd love to talk to you more about your transition to Boston if you choose to come here. So the structure of the panel, we're going to talk about generic kind of what's important for you to think about for the application process. How do you navigate picking your programs, building your match list? We'll hone into training in Boston, what that feels like from a resident perspective, and then I would recommend for your personal questions for any of the residents here, including myself, if you're able to use the exhibit hall or the specialty breakout rooms to ask more specific questions related to their specific programs. So we'll get started. I'm going to ask for Juliet and Candice, if you're able to tell me a little bit more about what a student should look for in a residency program. If you could give me about 2 or 3 specific points about what's important, that would be great. I'll start with Juliet.
All right, that's a tough one. I wanted to start by saying one thing. I think meetings like this can sometimes feel a little bit intimidating. You have all these lovely faculty telling you to apply here, and you're like, well, it would be, so for some people, it's like, well, it would be a dream to be here. The question is, would folks here accept me? And I just want to just openly say out loud, and you'll hear about this in the breakout panels with many of our residency directors. We are looking for you. We are excited about you guys applying. We are, excited to read applications and hear about the things that make you you and your unique perspective and your unique goals for what you plan to bring to medicine. And so I would start there. I would say the first thing that I was looking for when I was applying for med school was, the kind of programs where I felt like individuals could talk about their journey and that journey being supported. Sometimes you find residency programs where the residency program itself has a niche and they say, this is our specialty. We train people to do this, to do that, the other. One of the things I loved about the programs here is I found that for many people, they could say with their whole heart that they came in with this vision, and that vision had been given a place to grow and to thrive. It's been my experience here that Harvard has so many resources. It's easy to get lost in some of those resources, but it's also easy to grow in those resources. And so one of the things I was looking for was stories of people kind of growing on a path that they felt was the one that they wanted to pursue. Another thing that truly mattered for me, and this was just kind of based on my experience in medical school, was I was looking for a place that valued rest. We're all coming out of a pandemic. We're all coming out of a place of just extreme work. Medical school is no joke, nor is residency. And so one of the questions I would often ask is, how does this program facilitate a culture of recovery, of rest, of being able to kind of say, this is who I am, this is what matters to me outside of this place. How can I tap into that still as a resident? And so those were the two things that I would say for me, kind of when I was approaching residency applications that mattered most.
Oh, that was such a great answer. But before I answer the question, I just want to say that, I was also a VCP participant and literally last year, yes, I remember you too, Danielle. She's amazing. And I was literally sitting right over there last year. So to be on the other side now here on this panel is really such a blessing. And so I just want to say that, if you truly want to be here, you could definitely be here one day, just like I am now. So it's definitely possible. But to answer the question, I would say what I was looking in a program, very similar to what she said. I had a vision of what I wanted for my career, but I also want to go somewhere where they could expose me to other parts of the specialty that I did not know about. And so with Massachusetts General Hospital, they have so many experts in psychiatry and so many different, specialties and subspecialties. And so to be able to go into a program where I could gain that exposure was really important to me. The other aspect of that I would say that I was looking for in a program, I would say just a place where I could train and really be able to ask the questions and receive that mentorship, because, you want to be in an environment where, yes, you're learning, but if you're in an environment where people truly want to teach you and see you excel, it's an amazing, amazing thing to be a part of. And now that I'm here, I can actually say I really enjoy working with the faculty, working with my mentors, and they are truly there to help me to grow and become the professional that I want to be. And it's a great environment. So I would say those are the two things.
Thank you so much. I think kind of pulling out the themes here, you're hearing a lot about programs that value you holistically, who value every part of you, not just your identity as a trainee, but who you are as a person. And I think that I definitely resonated with all of the advice that you shared. So thank you all for the great advice. I wanted to move into the interview portion of application season, which can be extremely daunting, especially the aspect of a lot of the interviews being virtual. And so I wanted to ask Edward and Fallon a little bit more about how you approached the virtual interview season, and if you could pull out 1 to 2 tips that you would recommend for the medical students when they're applying on how to succeed in that environment.
Awesome. So yeah, I had a virtual interview process like I think most of us probably did on the panel. And that was really, really difficult. I think it was difficult to put your best face on a virtual interview and also to get any information from the programs on a virtual interview. Folks can feel really manicured. Folks can feel really scripted on the virtual interview process. I think a few things for me that were really helpful in thriving in the virtual interview setting was going to as many prep sessions ahead of time, specifically prepping for virtual interviews. So I think our med school did a good job of like having some Zoom sessions beforehand that let you practice what that would be like. I think some other things that are really helpful are your setup as well. I think making your home as comfortable as possible is really helpful there. So having like tea nearby you, like your favorite tea, or just having a candle lit or something else that will make you feel at ease to get through the nerves of the virtual interview. I think what's most important is that you should really not judge a program by what the virtual interview is, because like I said, it can be really manicured. So trying to get some outside information outside of that, either reaching out to someone from the program that's been, that went from your med school, because I think folks are really, really comfortable talking to alumni from their school, or someone from your hometown, or anyone that's just has a background similar to you, just to get a sense of what it's like on the real. Don't be afraid to ask folks as well when you talk to them what this conversation is looking like. So for instance, when I talk to applicants, I almost always say that I don't have a role in the interview process, and I'm just there to answer questions. So I'm genuine. So I think those are really the big takeaways for me, which is your setup is really important. Try your best, but you're not going to get everything from the interview. And then talking to folks who look or have backgrounds similar to you will give you the most information, honestly.
Alan?
Yeah, I think So I agree with all of that. I think I would add a couple things. One is like, watch or do something that brings you joy before you start the interview. You want to seem like you're authentically like happy and not like, you just watched a really sad movie and now you're like about to engage. You kind of want it, you want to exude like that energy that you want to be seen for. I think just as much as you are being interviewed, you're also interviewing the program. So there was a lot of programs that for me, after my virtual, as much as it's not the best way to get your feel for the program, there was just like some questions or some people that kind of threw me off a little bit. I was like, I don't know about that place. So I think, kind of use it as an opportunity to also learn more about the program as well. The other thing I would say is like, be professional 100% of the time. You're going to see people on the same like interview panel as you when it's like in the social breakout rooms, start being a little like not professional or saying things, or, there was people in my groups that were cursing or like making little, it's just not the space. And I just would not use that opportunity to kind of like break your shell. I think, certain groups of us are allowed a little bit more leniency in this process than others, and I would just be very cognitive of that. The other thing is, I think when you have those like breakout rooms where you're kind of like speaking to the residents, so it's very informal and you're just kind of there to like ask them questions, like use that as an opportunity to kind of show your like authentic self and like what you're interested in and what you engage in. A lot of programs do use like resident feedback as a way to see if that resident would be a good fit for that team, because that's who you're really going to, like my residency is 7 years, right? So I need to just make sure these are people I could at least like, maybe not people I'm hanging out with all the time, but like at least I can work with, and who seemed like, respectful and good colleagues. So use that as an opportunity to also kind of show a different part of your personality or your interests or your hobbies and things that, may be relatable.
Thank you so much. I think, the really important thing to remember is as much as you are interviewing for a spot at that program, that you should be interviewing the programs. How can the program really advance your career goals and really honor you as a person? I think that transactional bidirectionality of it is really important. It can be hard to remember, especially when you're like, I just want to match. And so I think you have to remember, how can this program get me to where I want to go as in my career? So thank you so much for those tips. And I'm dating myself, but I did not have a virtual interview. And so I'm glad that these folks are able to kind of give you some tips that I wouldn't be able to have any experience on. I want to move us along and really think about the idea of training in Boston. What does that actually look like? I think we all, especially from folks who are not from Boston like myself, have a idea of what training in Boston would look like, whatever that may look like. And I think one thing that I gleaned when talking to other applicants on the trail, as well as residents, two things stood out: cost of living and the relationship with race and racism. And so I do want to address those, because those are, at least for me, the two things I was scared to ask about. And so I wanted to pose the question regarding cost of living to Nonye and Jose about how do you manage the high cost of living compared to some other cities that we see in Boston, and how do you navigate that? You can start with Nonye, if that's okay with you.
So Boston is definitely very expensive. I grew up in London. I still think it's expensive.
I think London is more expensive.
Rent is going to be very expensive. In terms of how you manage it, I can tell you about how I managed it. And I mean, I'm fortunate enough that my parents would help me. However, with the salary alone, it is also possible to manage it. You just probably won't be able to save as much. In terms of finding housing, reaching out to previous residents about finding how they manage to maneuver it. So by that, I mean, they may be able to put you in touch with other people in the program so you can live together ahead of time. They may also be able to arrange it so that you can take over their property as soon as they leave, because they could have negotiated a good deal. So that's something that I know some people found helpful. Also living with someone who has a car as well, then you can live slightly further out and save money that way as well. Personally, with me, I prioritized living close to the hospital. Residency is hard enough as it is. I don't want anything getting in the way. I like to walk. Boston is a walkable city. And that was something that was important to me. I wanted to be able to walk to work, basically. But that does mean that more than 50% of your salary is going towards rent. But there's definitely ways to maneuver around it.
Thank you so much. Jose?
Kind of awkward. So when I first moved to Boston, I was pretty much coming off of the COVID pandemic, so I got to enjoy some of the price cuts in the area. I would say though, there are multiple ways that you can mitigate costs, and obviously living with roommates is one of them. I would say I would go along with talking to the residents that get to meet along the interview course is very important because some of them are actually graduating and leaving their units behind. So you want to make sure that you get those personal references first. There are some other channels that being part of the Harvard family are also quite beneficial. I think there are some private groups on Facebook and social media, as well as some Harvard listings as well, where people within the community, Harvard beyond the med school, are also posting units and bedrooms available as well. And usually those tend to be better price because it's coming from personal references and directly from landlords rather than dealing with a intermediary broker. So I would say, once you learn the awesome news that you get to join the Harvard family, tap into those channels and into the people that are going to be helping you along the way to, get jump started with residency, to make sure that you also get access to those inside informations that most people don't know exist.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I think just to briefly add, and this is a question to definitely ask our representatives at the exhibit hall about programs and stipend programs that are offered through many of the hospitals. I'll speak to Mass General Brigham, who offers $10,000 a year in two different categories. One, flat for all residents to help with childcare costs, housing, moving costs, et cetera, and others as well for an economically disadvantaged trainees where they're able to get $10,000 each year for 3 years. And so you could end up getting at the beginning of each academic year up to $20,000 of additional support on top of your salaries. I'll also say that in the last year, under the wave of many programs, including Mass General Brigham, the residents and trainees voting to unionize, there has been a lot of attention paid to the salaries and making sure that they are addressing the inflation and higher cost of living. And so there's been raises for salaries, and other programs and hospital systems have also done that as well. And so I think these are the questions that you should be asking at the exhibit hall. You can ask any of the residents how they kind of manage their budgets, because it's definitely doable. There are definitely areas that are more affordable, and definitely a lot of different personal connections and networks where you can find housing and additional supports. So I'm happy to talk about that. I came from Wisconsin. My rent was $300 to $400 a month. It's not that here. Okay, so I was very cognizant of the financial impact that it would have to my wallet. I also like to shop a lot more than I probably should. So you have to it's definitely doable. And I just wanted to honor that because I know that that's a question that a lot of students have. I want to open this up because I want to be mindful of the sensitive nature and how everyone's lived experience is different. But just thinking about how you've experienced race and racism in Boston, what your experience has been like, how did you factor that into your decision-making process and what your actual experience has been? So I will open it up to two residents. I want to be mindful. I don't want to call anyone out to speak on this, but if you are willing and able, I would love to hear your thoughts. And if not, I'm happy to share my thoughts.
So I think coming from New Jersey, one of the things that I heard about Boston is, one, it's very expensive, and two, it's very racist. I think a lot of us is probably in the audience have heard that. That was something I certainly heard, and walked into this institution knowing that that might be something I will deal with. I think for me, when I was interviewing around in person, I didn't do virtual. I was able to get a feel for the program and for their commitment to diversity and inclusion and dealing with issues with racism. And so for me, I got a good sense that I was going into a place that wasn't perfect. You know, knew that there were problems and that they were happy to talk about them and also happy to talk about what they were doing to fix them. I think Juliet made a really good point about wanting to go to a program that's supportive in all aspects of your life. And that was how I felt when I chose to come here at BI, where I felt as though I was gonna be very well supported in all aspects of my professional and personal life. And so I definitely have experienced instances of micro and macroaggressions here at the BI. You know, as an obstetrician, being on labor and delivery, you know, we take care of patients of all colors. Danielle mentioned the Demic Center. We get a lot of brown, Latino patients, Black patients from the Demic Center. And our nursing staff is primarily white. So you experience, you know, the differences in care and you see the differences in treatment sometimes between these patients who are underserved and a primarily white staff. And I will say from my intern year to now being a chief, there has been an immense amount of growth that I've seen amongst our entire department and our hospital, where we have, you know, done a lot of training as a department amongst the nursing and the residents and the faculty and the staff in terms of how we can do better, like how we can support our patients without, you know, being biased, without having microaggressions. And that has certainly been something I've been extremely proud of my department about. From a resident perspective, me personally, definitely, you know, being called another resident of color's names, like that's something that happens and, you know, it never feels good to be a fourth year resident and you're being mistaken for the intern. You know, that looks nothing like you, but it just happens to be Black. My program directors, you know, the whole leadership department have been extremely supportive and wanting us to speak up and reach out whenever these happen. You know, my program director, who's not here right now, you know, one of her common phrases is, you know, I can't help if I don't know. So that was something where, you know, especially as people of color, like we kind of internalize things, we kind of try to push through, you know, it's like a badge of honor, like, and we just push through because we're strong, you know, resilient. However, residency is tough at baseline, you know, to be a resident of color, dealing with racism, you know, that's another barrier on top of many barriers that you're going through. And so that was something I learned very easy on, is to not take these instances and just deal with it. Because you know what, those who come behind you are just gonna deal with it even worse. And so that was, you know, that's kind of the culture that we have now at the BIDMC Department of Obstetrics, as well as across the board, you know, talking with other members of the DIA committee. Danielle is a huge, strong advocate. I can't even, you guys have seen her, she's amazing. But, you know, I think in short, to summarize my program and the things that I've dealt with, yes, I have dealt with things, and yes, my program has dealt with them 10 times as much, you know, to the point where we've seen less amounts of microaggressions, less amounts of instances of overt racism. We still have ways to go, but I am very confident that, you know, we're gonna get to a place where everyone can be happy and, you know, less biased than they were when they started. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Any other residents that wanted to share their thoughts, or I'm happy to add in.
I can add my thoughts. So I think, I mean, all of that sort of resonates with me as well. And I think it's a work in progress. I think it's not an everyday, but I think colleagues and other surgical colleagues I've spoken to, is sometimes it can feel like death after a million paper cuts. It's sort of like little things that add up over time. And so I think what I've seen as well is like there's been more ownership from a department level, as well as like within my specific division, I think, to address these issues. I think the tricky part is you don't always feel empowered to say like that something has happened when it has happened. And I think that's part of like learning how to use your voice. And I think seeing more people that look like us in positions of leadership, I think also empowers us to be able to speak up. So I think that's where, as an institution, I think whether it's Harvard or this, you know, the separate like hospitals, whatever it is, I think there has to be more of a push to get people that look like us within positions of leadership that are outside of DEI, because I think we encounter a lot of this, and it shouldn't be that I have to go to the CDI office to have these conversations, which is what does happen. But it needs to exist in other spaces so that I can sort of, that we can all kind of feel seen and feel heard. And it's not just the responsibility of other faculty of color, but it's like a joined responsibility of everyone.
Thank you so much. I think it's really important to understand the local context that you're walking into with wherever you're training. And I think as someone who's lived on the East Coast, the West Coast, and the Midwest, and also being situated in internal medicine and in dermatology, I think I approached my process and looking at how are there in terms of the levels of support, not only interpersonal support with your residency leadership, but also is there institutional support? That is financial and time. Are there people who have protected time and financial resources to continue to work on this? This is not a specific to Boston issue. This is embedded in our healthcare system as a whole. And so I would be remiss to say that you're going to train somewhere else and not experience a microaggression, that you're not going to experience a episode of overt racism. I don't know if that would be possible in this country that we live in. And I think that's just the honest truth that I walked into my process with. And so I thought about how can I go to a place that's going to honor that I shouldn't be the one as a resident leading the committees, leading these things. These are people should be trained and people should be paid to do this work because it is hard work. And I'm really grateful to be at a program and at an institution that really valued the fact that you kind of have to put your money where your mouth is. If you care about diversity, equity, inclusion, the psychological safety of your trainees, how are you putting the resources into that to make sure that they can thrive and be in a learning environment where they can just focus on doing their job? So I will keep it to that. I think please ask all of us about our experiences and really kind of how we've navigated that or at least thought about that in the match process. I want to be mindful of time and I'm really excited for you all to get to the exhibit hall. So I'll end with one more question and I'll keep it open for folks. And this is just thinking about, okay, so it's, what is it, January, February, we're thinking about where do I actually want to go? How do I navigate ranking and doing my match list, and ultimately why did I choose my program? And so I'm going to open this up to 1 to 2 residents and ask, how did you navigate ranking these programs? You're going to go through so many interviews, you're going to get tired. I don't remember these details. What is call like? Who cares? But thinking about what was important for you and how did you choose your program?
Think about it this one first because I kind of struggle with my list, but one of the things that I said during the interview at my program, based on learning about the program, was continuing to doing exactly what you did that made you fall in love with medicine in the first place. The first thing that got you excited to continue this path, because it's a long run, it never ends. And so to be able to do that and find joy along the way, it's what really is gonna help you keep up with, the challenges that are forthcoming. So for me, Cambridge Health Alliance not only gave me the opportunity to continue to working with a diverse patient population, but also with immigrants. My work started, I was doing research at Columbia University Med Center in New York. And I was fortunate enough that I met a few med students there who put me in touch with a primary care clinic for immigrant and uninsured. And so even before considering medicine, I already had a really good grasp and idea of what was necessary, not only to be part of the community, but also be able to help this patient population that, it's so present in our society today. So when I learned about Cambridge Health Alliance, and I learned it in the most weird way. So everybody was networking through Twitter, and this person who happens to have work at this organization motivated me to consider that program, particularly on a Zoom meeting that we did off of Twitter. So here I am, thanks to that person. And so, yeah, as soon as I learned what CHA was about, I understood that this was the place where I wanted to continue my journey. So going back to what I said earlier, just find that place that is excited about what you've done, because they're gonna be able to take what you've done and take it to the next level.
Thank you, Jose.
Hi, so I definitely want to add in on this question because I just said it like 8 months ago. And so for me, there are several aspects that I thought about with my ranking list. The first thought that I had is, you know, when I was talking with residents, something that resonated with me that they said was when you go to a residency program, it's great to think about the residency program, how they can help you, but think about the bigger picture of, okay, where you're going to is where you're also just going to live, you know, so go to a place where you can enjoy living life outside of residency. And I can tell you as an intern, when I have hard days, I love that I'm in Boston. I have so many things to do and I have such a great community and such just it's just a wonderful place to live in general. And so for me, it wasn't just thinking about the programs, it was thinking about the actual place where I was living at and if I could really see myself living my life in that place. The other aspect that I would say with ranking is I definitely talk with a lot of different people because it does get pretty murky. You'll find programs that you like, you'll find programs that you don't like, but there might be a few that are just so close to each other. You're like, how do I know which one? And for me, I just felt that sense of community that if I were to train at Mass General in this program, that I would be a part of a family, not just a part of a program. So really feeling like you're fit into that program was really big for me. And then another aspect for me was, again, I really want to emphasize this idea of going someplace where you can thrive, where they see your vision of where you want to go and they're able to help you get there. So I'm a part of the child track and one of my dreams, I'm already an author, but I want to delve into children's books. And so when I talk to them about my love for writing and wanting to write children's books, a part of my career, they said, hey, we have this program, we have these resources, we have mentorship. And it just seemed like they were just as excited as I was about what I was passionate about. So going to a place that's really going to help you thrive with whatever passions you have, whether that's within medicine or outside of medicine.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, I love all of that. I think the one other thing is when you're ranking and you have your like #1 program and you reach out to that #1 program. I know every residency is different, but I'll tell you specifically for surgery, we're told to email that top program. You can only email one program that they're your #1 program. I know that's very common sense, but some people think, oh, I'm just gonna tell 3 people. You know, you got to just propose to one. You can't do that. So I think that's one piece of advice that like needs to be said because I've heard other ways of trying to cheat the system and I would not do that. When you rank programs, I think for me, thinking specifically surgery, you want to go where you're going to be trained the best. I think that's really kind of so, and I think so inherent in what everyone was just saying. So it, you know, will it maybe not, like I'm the first vascular Black female trainee that they've ever seen. So I haven't seen anyone like myself in the program to try to emulate something that's existed, but I'm not the last because our intern this year is also a Black woman, so that's exciting. So I think thinking about, you know, sort of where you're going to get the best training, and there's experts in like everything within the Harvard affiliated programs, but you know, at Mass General, at Brigham, at BI, and at CHA, and I think that's amazing to be around such like incredible thinkers and innovators within the field, and I think you should also strongly consider that.
Wow, thank you so much to all of our panelists for being vulnerable, open, and honest. Give them a round of applause, please. We all will be around if you have any questions that you want to answer, ask us personally, and I will hand it over to Dr. Landry.
Awesome. We are going to transition very quickly. Thank you all, by the way. That was awesome. I really appreciate how open and honest and candid you all were. If you all need like 2 seconds to stretch as our panelists are leaving and we bring up our next panelist, you can do so. But I want to introduce Dr. Jay Bias, who will be the moderator for our program director panel. Dr. Bias is an associate professor in medicine here at Harvard Medical School. He's an immunologist and infectious disease specialist, and he's also the program director for internal medicine at MGH. Dr. Bias.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alden. Appreciate it. And if I can have my co-panelists join me here up here, what we hope to do, I think over the course, so come on down for those who are going to be joining me. I think what we've done is we've brought together a couple different program directors who are going to be here to answer some questions. I'm going to be posing a number of questions. Come on in. Wonderful. And we'll try to go through, and I think many of the questions that we hope you guys are interested in hearing some answers from, kind of from a diversity of areas that we'll be talking about. Maybe I'll start opening up, maybe start with just a philosophical point. Welcome here. We are so excited to see all of you here. We as residency program directors look out at this audience and we see the future of medicine. And for us, this is one of the highlights of our opportunities to be able to do something face-to-face. As you'll hear, a lot of what we do starting after today is going to be virtual, but the opportunity to be able to meet with you and to see you and to talk to you is just such a gift and a joy for us to be able to spend time with you. And so please take that opportunity, not only in this session, but for the rest of the afternoon to do that. Harvard has a wonderful tapestry of affiliated hospitals that are part of the graduate medical education environment that is in Harvard, that is in Boston. And you'll hear from a number of different institutions. Things might be done a little bit differently from one institution to the other, but we all are under the flag of Harvard Medical School. And so for us, it is just a wonderful opportunity for all of us to come together and spend a little bit of time talking to you as well. So before I pepper these four volunteers with some questions, I'm going to ask them just to do a quick introduction, and maybe starting with Don and then working our way down a little bit in terms of who they are and what programs they represent. And then I'll go ahead with the questions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Don Romanelli. I'm the program director for the Diagnostic Radiology Residency Program at Mount Auburn Hospital in Cambridge.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Rogers. I'm the program director for internal medicine at Cambridge Health Alliance. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Awesome. I'm Chris Cheston. I'm a pediatrician, the best, undisputed subspecialty in the world. I am representing the Boston Combined Residency Program, which is an HMS and Boston University combined program. I think that's all I'm supposed to say.
Great on-brand enthusiasm for pediatrics. I'm Sarah Nevis. I'm the anesthesia program director at the IDMC in Boston.
Woohoo!
Excellent. So our format's going to be that I have a number of questions here that I want to ask these folks. Instead of giving 4 answers for each question, I'm going to probably reach out to 2 of you, ask the question and answer the question. But if my other 2 have some burning point that is maybe that was missed or that is worth mentioning, I'm going to leave it to their discussion to kind of just pipe in and go from there. My hope is that we're going to cover a lot of territory here, so we'll be able to go through a number of different topics that we can go through. All right, so let's start with preparation. So these guys are all putting together their applications. They're coming here hoping to kind of think a little bit about how they're going to craft their applications. What are you guys doing in terms of trying to prepare for the upcoming interview season? So maybe I'll ask Don and Rebecca to start us off with what you guys are doing about preparing for this application season.
Sure, I can start. I was remarking what the resident said. So everything the resident said, I think, was amazing advice. They were talking about sort of being nervous for virtual interviews, and you should know that I'll speak for myself. Your programs that you're interviewing with, they're probably just as nervous. They're probably thinking also about how do we best represent ourselves on our website and in the virtual space. So we're also trying to do this, like really show you the personal things about our residency program. So every program is going to do something a little different. We were talking about making a new video of a tour of our hospital since people can't come see it in person. We're recording some videos about our curriculum. So we're going to include all the new curricular changes we've made since last year for people to review. We're talking again about the questions we're going to ask on interview day and how scores we assign to applicants and how do we do that in a more nuanced way. So I'm a new program director this year, so it's a great opportunity for us to sort of revamp the whole day and experience.
Yeah, I'd say we do largely the same. I guess a couple of other points I'll try to make. So we're a small program, and so our residents participate really highly in the process. Maybe you guys do too, but I know for us we basically have to. And so our residents, starting around mid to late September, we start talking about training for how to be on the other side of the interview process. And so there's a lot that goes into that. We do some implicit bias training. Our residents and actually our faculty too all have to go online and take Harvard implicit bias testing to you sort of learn for yourself some biases that you might have that you don't know. We talk about questions that you can't ask and are allowed to ask. And for the applicants, there are things you can bring up to us that then we can talk about, but we're not going to ask you about that. So we have to, if you haven't been on this side, you have to sort of learn all that. So we go through the same process of sort of recruitment with webinars and training and whatnot, but we also kind of look internally and try to prepare.
Let me do a quick follow-up question and I'll ask Chris and Sarah to opine. Rebecca talked a little bit about information that's found on the website. So to the applicants, is that homework? Should you be doing work and looking at that information before you show up to the interview? Or is it okay to kind of go into the interview and then use that as a place of reference after the interview?
Sure. Yeah. So you guys can imagine, right? If you were us, we know, just like the residents said on the panel, we're not going to be able to give you everything you want and everything you need to know on a virtual interview day. We're going to try our very best. But the second best way to do that is to put it online for you guys to read it. And actually probably right before that is for all of us to up our social media game and for you guys to be looking at us on Instagram. And does anybody still do X or Twitter, whatever it is, right? But like whatever it is, those are the other places where we're like, our program, for example, is doing Takeover Tuesdays, right? One of our residents is taking over our Instagram on Tuesdays and showing you what an actual day of pediatrics residency in the BCRP is like. So in terms of whether or not that's homework or not, I mean, I will tell you as a program director, it makes me smile when somebody references something that they read about our program on the website because it shows interest, not because they spent 3 hours. I don't care that you spent 3 hours to do that, but it actually shows me hopefully that you are genuinely interested in something about our program. So it is worth your time to dig into those resources on our websites because we are trying to use that as a major forum for sharing information with you.
Yeah, I would agree completely. It doesn't, and it won't be evident to me whether you've looked at the website or you've talked with previous alumni that you interacted with at your med schools, or you came to our ASA open house, or you came to our virtual open, anything like that. But coming in with some information is always noticed, and I think helps you get the most out of the session as well. One thing I have noticed that has increased is we'll get emails with, I've gotten emails with like a list of questions about the program, and I would probably suggest not doing that, because then, I mean, we're pretty busy, but also it just tells me, right, that you're just looking for a one-stop shop for me to like take out and retype everything to you about the program. So definitely use the resources you have around you. I mean, there's lots of, everyone is probably 4 degrees of separation from everyone else in terms of programs or someone they knew from a program. And so those can be really great resources as well.
Excellent. All right. So a word that's bandied around quite a bit is holistic review. What does that actually mean? So why don't we start with Rebecca and Chris to give us a definition of what holistic review means.
I think at a very basic level, it means, you can imagine a system in which you're just like looking at people's grades and exam scores. Now there's fewer exam scores than there used to be, but I think that would be like the polar opposite of holistic review, right? Like someone needs to get an honors and they need to get this score and like, that's it. And everyone gets an interview. I think most programs have gone away from that, right? So we're actually looking at your activities and do the things that you have committed your time for align with the mission of our residency program. And I think we'll get to this, but which ones have been your most meaningful experiences, and do those things really gel with what we're looking for people to bring to our training program? And we're reading your letters of recommendation and seeing like what are the little vignettes that the faculty member remember about you. So that's 2 examples that come to mind in holistic review. And for our program, we're a primary care, community-based, mission-driven program. So we have a niche that we're looking for people who really match that niche, and we can't get that from your scores. We have to get that from learning about you as a person. And your personal statement for sure is a very important part of the holistic review. So really putting who you are in the personal statement is what we're looking for. Yeah, I will just say we do not use cutoffs, or we do not look at quantitative scores, right? So we are exactly like she said, right? We are looking for people whose mission as physicians and whose mission as future leaders, for in my case, in pediatrics, both in the United States and abroad, right?
Does that align with what we can offer you, right? And more specifically, does what you bring to the table do something good for my patients, right? My patients at Boston Medical Center, my patients at Boston Children's, my patients in the metropolitan area of Boston. And so holistic review means looking at whether or not are you walking the walk? Are you doing the things that you are talking about being passionate about in your personal statement? Are the people around you, your letter writers, your deans, are they seeing that passion? Are they seeing that leadership? Are they seeing that servant heart that you have and that you're going to bring to your job here in Boston in our program? That's what holistic review is. Speaking for my program, we read every page of every application, all 1,800 that come in every year. And so if you're applying in PEDS and you're applying to the BCRP, your invitation to come to do an interview will come very late because we're reading a lot of pages. And so I'm sorry about that. But it's a part of the important process that we hold dear.
Excellent. Sarah and Don, there's a new wrinkle this year called signaling. How are you guys going to be looking at signaling, and what is signaling? Let's start there, and how does that impact the process as well as the approach to holistic review?
Yep. So signal preferencing is, I sort of conceptually think of it as like the bachelorette, like Rose, you know, like you do. But everyone has a certain number of signals. It depends on the program. So for anesthesiology, we have 5 gold and 10 silver signals. This is only our second year using signals. Last year we had, everyone had only 5. The general idea is to really try that, is to really get a better sense of matching who is really interested in our program. We try, we do holistic review for all of our applications as well, but similarly, right, we had 2,100 applications last year. There's, sometimes the data can be a little bit blurry on each student, so it can be really helpful for us to target our special interest to someone who is also especially interested in us. We get that you are applying to lots of programs because you also do just want to match, right? And so we recognize that. We don't only look at signals, but it does help give us a better sense of your interest in us. I think, like I said, it's important to ask your specialty what role signals play. So for us, going from 5 to 15, it means that we will probably be narrowing our focus more to those who have given us signals, right? It means that if we have not gotten a signal from you, that we're probably not in your top 15 programs. So that, right, that tells me some information. Doesn't mean that, I will never look at your application, but it's just being a way to be a little bit more open and honest about the interest, which I think is important, right? We want to give the whole point, right, is to get people where they want to be. So I think the other piece that we always want to mention is if you are a rotator or if you are a home program student, it's important to know what for your home program how they are looking at signals. So for example, for us, we are still asking from our home med students, from our rotators, that if you are interested in us, give us a signal because you have up to 15, right? Whereas last year there were only 5. So we said, it's okay, we understand you're trying to maximize your chances, that kind of thing. So I think it's a really interesting development. I think we still, both programs as well as students aren't fully, aware of how best to use it necessarily, but those are some ideas of where to start, asking your programs and trying not to game it. Just use it as it's meant to be used, right? Which is that just give a place that you're interested in a signal. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I would say in radiology, last year was the first year everyone had 6 signals for radiology. This year they have 6 gold and 6 silver. So I'm still trying to wrap my head about how I feel about being the 7th best program on your list. But no, to focus a little more on a small program. So I speak with some of the other small program directors around the country. So radiology is pretty competitive, and small programs have always struggled to figure out who their niche was and who do they interview. And I had almost 900 applications for 3 slots last year. How do we narrow that down to a reasonable number of people we could interview? So last year we used the signaling as a sort of tiebreaker. If you signaled us and someone else didn't, and you were about the same otherwise, we would interview the person who signaled us. We used geographic signaling a little bit last year too. I have to say, maybe I should say we used it as a negative. So if you specified a geographic place outside of New England.
Yeah.
We kind of went, well, they don't really want to come here. So again, we use it as a tiebreaker. If you didn't specify anything geographic, then we didn't use it. So we didn't want to penalize someone for that reason. But at the same time, we had to be somewhat efficient with our interview slots. But I would say, as a clue for some of you, if you're let's say you're applying to a very competitive specialty and you're not sure, where you'll fit in, I would consider using a signal on a smaller program that maybe is less well known, because they will take it very seriously. I know my friends from small places around the country are like, well, if that person signaled me they want to come to, I don't know, pick a town, Wichita, Kansas, to be in our program, that means something to me, because maybe a lot of people want to come to Boston or New York, but if they signal that, so that might be a strategy you could use for sort of a safety if you're applying for that type of program.
I did just want to add one more thing. I know most of the programs that I've heard of are really using the signaling to get from the application to interview stage, and that they're not using it much after that as far as for ranking.
Yeah, that's what we do too.
I'll just add an editorial note here. So it's first of all, let's state what the problem is. The problem is that in the setting of kind of all virtual interviewing, most of us have seen a substantial increase in the number of applications that we receive. And again, you heard from the panel here that our goal is really holistic review. That means we read through every one of those applications. So it's a lot of person power in terms of trying to put all of that together. It's not usually just done by one or two individuals. It's simply mathematically not possible to do that. So the idea is, as we start to look at these, is there any other distinguishing factors that can help us in terms of trying to identify a better match? And so signaling, I will just say, is I think, an experiment that's still happening at this point. The data in terms of its impact on how it's actually working and does it actually meet the needs of the students as well as the programs, in my mind, is still uncertain. So but we have to start somewhere, because where right now, many of us find, and when we ask our faculty to do more and more and more review, it just becomes to a point where it becomes very, very difficult to be able to pull those down to that number. So this is going to be a kind of an experimental part. For you, you're only going through this once. And so as a result of that, you have to understand it. And I think this was exceptionally valuable advice. But for us, we're still trying to figure out and navigate this. This is not something like we understand the game. We're still trying to figure out what that impact is going to look like as well. All right, excellent. So can I ask Chris and Sarah to comment a little bit about personal statements? So the students are really still putting together their final touches on their personal statements. Any words of advice on putting the best ones together? And I'm going to also add in, what are the things that they should stay away from in a personal statement?
Well, I have several people on my application review committee who read the personal statement first as like their step one of reviewing the application. And the idea is to get a whole sense of the person before you start to delve into all the nitty gritty and putting the piece together. So it really should be a picture of you, who you are and what you're looking for. I think it doesn't need to be wildly creative. I mean, I remember going through the process and thinking of myself as not a particularly interesting person. And so I really stressed out about the personal statement. I'm like, I'm just a regular gal. And so, but I think that's what they just want to get a sense of who you are and what you're looking for, what's important to you. And then the other piece that I always tell people is you should really use that as an opportunity to explain gaps or potentially perceived red flags in your application. For me, that's hugely important, especially as we are trying our best to do the holistic review. We're much more understanding and willing to overlook struggles in academics or leaves from school or things like that. If you are coming open to us about what happened and how you overcame it or that kind of thing, rather than kind of hoping we don't notice it. I think that's hugely important.
I hope I don't want anybody to go back and delete their personal statement after I say this, but I'm going to say it. So you are going to choose a specialty to apply into. By choosing that specialty to apply into, we assume you would like to do that specialty. So formulating your personal statement about why you chose that specialty is less exciting to me. And I will say that's 95% of the personal statements I read in pediatrics. But that is far less exciting to me than what your journey and path has been to get to this point where you are ready to launch into a career as a pediatrician. Is that because you have a kick-ass family and somebody did something great for you and there's a story to tell there? Is that because you found a passion taking care of immigrants for whatever reason. Tell me that story. And like I said, if you've drafted, stick with it. Better to be safe, I think, than sorry when it comes to personal statements. In terms of things not to write about, I might open this up to our whole panel because I don't have.
So I'll say, be careful with humor. I said this last year.
Yeah, I still remember from last year, sorry.
So I hate to signal someone out, but so I read a letter, a personal statement a few years back, and it was basically sort of a tongue-in-cheek joke about how I'm a radiologist. If you didn't notice, about how radiologists don't work that hard. You know, like this sort of, I was on my surgery rotation, and I was so tired, and I saw the radiologist, and he was wide awake and drinking coffee and happy, and it was kind of funny, but I can tell you, my whole team took it as insulting. So you have to be really careful. You know, in person, maybe you could pull that off, but when you write it down and you read it, you know, this is not the place for that. I would be careful. This is your chance, right? This is the one thing on your application that's not data, pretty much, right? This is, you guys spoke about it really eloquently. This is your chance to talk about you. So talk about you. Don't make jokes.
I'm going to make two more points. The first one is this is really hard for all of you. This is really hard for all of us. You have to brag about yourself a little bit. You have to own what your power is. You have to own what your strengths are, and you have to show me what those are. And you should not be afraid to do that. And the other thing, I'm gonna put a little asterisk on my my comment about not writing about what you want to do or the specialty that you chose. If you're somebody who is your application, if I were to read it outside your personal statement, looks like you're applying in optho and you're applying into peds as a backup, please. I know you're applying in optho, but that is an opportunity for you to say why pediatrics could be a good choice for you.
Great. Now I'll add two quick things. One is make sure someone else reads your application or read their personal statement, and they should see you. They shouldn't see pediatric resident not otherwise specified, right? Your passion should be there, right? If it comes off as too generic, it's not what we're looking for. That's not where we're really looking for, that passion and looking for who that is. And then the second one, which is pretty trivial, but just worth mentioning, is that grammatical errors, omissions in other parts of a polished document can be distracting. For someone who's reading lots and lots of these things, it's great to have a prepared document that's been carefully crafted. So I oftentimes give it to somebody who may not even been in medicine. And just, can you make sure that all of these things look perfect and I haven't missed a semicolon or a capitalization or something like that? I think that those are helpful. All right. I want to get a quick, can I get 5 minutes, Alden? All right. I want to get to interviews. I'm going to ask Don and Rebecca to talk us a little through interviews. And it's a kind of a two-part question. One is, what should the students be thinking about in terms of getting ready to interview? And then number two, what are you as a program doing to get ready to interview? And how do you best showcase it? Because we all know this is going to be virtual. So the question is, what's the best things for the students? And how do you make sure that those students know the best, get to know your program at the end of the day?
So I talked a little bit about how we prepare, but for the day itself, one thing we did, our residents made a virtual tour of the department, so you'd get a feel for what it'd be like that day. We have one resident who kind of sits with the applicant in a breakout room and talks them through the tour. They stop the tour, let them ask questions, that type of thing, hoping, trying to simulate what it would be like to be in person. And then to switch to the other part of the question, what people talked about before about reviewing the website beforehand and being ready for the interview is hugely important. Make sure you have some questions to ask. You don't want, everyone ends their interview with, do you have any questions for me? And if you say, no, I already got my questions answered, it's a downer. Even if you already asked the other person who interviewed you that question, ask it to someone else because they might have a different answer. And also you don't want to not have a question. And ideally, it'll be a specific question about that program. I see that your residents rotate a month through, Mass Eye and Ear, I don't know. Tell me about that, because that shows us that you really took the time and have an interest, and you're really thinking hard about what's it going to be like for me to be at this program.
Yeah, I think so. I agree about reviewing the material and having some questions. And sometimes we get the question like, what are some big changes you foresee in the program coming up? And maybe you're really curious about that, but that always feels like something you've been told to ask by your med school. I don't know how other people feel about that, but yeah, I'm like, what's a new innovative thing you're working on might be a better way to ask that question, because hopefully every program is working on something new and innovative. I also think, right, be prepared to talk about yourself, right? I'll start with the question like, tell me your journey, like what brought you to wanting to be an internist today and apply to internal medicine? And if you're like, well, this is where I grew up and then I went to medical school and like, here I am, then I have to like, I try to get a little more out of the person, but be ready to tell your whole story. We're here to hear your whole story and learn about you. And just something to look for on your interview day, right? Hopefully programs are thinking about how to give you an opportunity to interact with residents on your interview day, whether it's like we do a virtual dinner the night before, we do a virtual lunch, you actually interview with the residents, you can ask like one-on-one questions to a resident. So that's something to look for. If a program is not giving you opportunities to interact with the residents, that might be a little bit of a red flag that maybe the residents aren't that happy and they don't want you to get access to the residents. So be prepared to bring questions to the residents too.
I wanted to bring up one other thing, sorry, and that is important. If you list something as an interest, be ready to talk about it. We every year, several people will list something as an interest, and the interviewer will have an interest in that. We try to teach our interviewers to sort of start the interview to get you comfortable, ask about something easy, ask an easy question, so they'll ask you about your interest. And if it's not really, well, I used to do that, but I don't do it anymore. It just comes off as a negative. So be careful about what you put down. I don't care if you only have 3 interests, as long as you're really interested in it.
Can I say one other thing? So in the virtual space, the other thing, please do not have your script like on a screen right here and just read off the script. We can see that. We can tell that you're doing that. And it's, you should prepare, you should think through thoughtful answers, but I swear to goodness, especially if you have something that's reflective, we can read it right back. It's not a good look.
I do think that we can, did you want to say something?
I was just going to offer a hot tip that if you can't think of anything to ask, it's always nice when the applicant has looked up a little bit about the people who are interviewing them. I mean, even just knowing what subspecialty they're in, or if they have a leadership role at the department, it's very low hanging fruit, easy, and it shows a little bit extra that you've done.
Completely agree. Faculty love talking about themselves. A couple things. One is I want to just endorse, I think you really should have time during any of those days by which you spend time with residents. And ideally it's with residents alone in some type of virtual space. And I think that that's something that you should look forward to and use that as a place by which you can gather some information. Because for those of us who do this all the time, we know a lot about the program. We're pretty polished in terms of our ability to try to sell you what we think is really great. The residents are having their lived experience. And so they're going to tell you exactly. And you also start to get a little bit of a personality of the programs from those programs. Places you're going to be applying to, I will assure you, are going to make you an outstanding clinician. But what you're really looking for is an opportunity to not only have that, but and really great career development opportunities, but you also are looking for people that you really want to work with, that you're really interested in, because as you heard from the resident panel, resident work is really hard. It is really a tough thing, but it's made a little bit less tough when you're really working with your residents. And so if that's the opportunity that you're going to be able to come into, that's going to be, I think, a really terrific thing. All right, so maybe to Chris and Sarah, we've now gone through the application process. We've talked a little bit about the personal statement, the interviews. Let's get to now past the interviews. We're talking about the post-interview communication. It's a dicey area. We heard a little bit from the residents about, encourage to reach out to your #1 program. Don't reach out to your #2 or #3 program in terms of that. What about thank you letters? What about, and what other things how do you navigate that particular space with programs that you're most interested in, or you're really interested in, but they're not going to be your #1
program? Okay, so I can speak from our program's perspective. So at the end of the interview day, I literally say this, I look at each person on the Zoom room like I'm looking at you and I say, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for coming. We as a program are not going to send you a generic thank you note coming from us after this interview day, because we're thanking you right now for being here. I would say generic thank you notes in my inbox as a program director or as an interviewer, don't play at all into my my decision-making process for rank lists, frankly. I'm going to speak for the Boston Combined Residency Program in pediatrics. It sounds like similar to vascular surgery. I actually think it is a good idea for you to send an email to your #1 program. That program will look at you as somebody who is very interested in them, and that feels good. And also, I completely lost my thought of my line of thought. But it is something that that many applicants do, and if you choose not to, I worry that that puts you at some sort of disadvantage.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the thing that's most important is that it's something that's true and authentic. So it's okay to not send the standard thank you so much is it's not going to count as a negative if you don't feel like if you don't have anything particular to say that's okay. If you feel like you really connected, you wanted to send a thank you to someone, you know, you'd really engage in conversation or something, definitely feel free. And that's always going to be a great idea, but it needs to just be real. And don't feel like you have to do it for everyone or every program. We've had people who send an email just to one of the people they interviewed with, right? And it was, you know, it's not me, the program director, it's just one of the other faculty members. And that can have a really significant impact, right? That shows the interest more truly, right, than anything that's more automatic. The other piece is lots of programs, myself included. I always appreciate if someone really is ranking us #1 to send an email about it. If you don't get an email back from me about it, that's okay. And I would say that's probably true of most programs too, to not overthink the communication back from the program. People have lots of different schools of thought on, you know, the messages they want to send or just being very clear cut about not communicating. So do what you feel is appropriate for yourself. Don't overthink what the program is sending back to you, I guess.
Excellent. Let me close by just asking all of you to make a quick comment in terms of just to get back to this the #1 process. We heard a little bit from Chris and Sarah. Maybe I'd just ask Don and Rebecca how important it is for you guys personally to receive the #1 email. Does that have an impact on your matching?
I mean, I think it's nice and it's flattering. It really doesn't honestly change our rank list that much. I mean, we like to see it. And I wanted to just add, be very careful if I'm your #2 program. Like someone said, don't give out 2 of those letters, and that's absolutely true. But also sending us one that says, you're really high on my rank list. I read it as I'm not #1 on their rank list, you know? So I would, use it and use it once.
The world gets so small. I have names in my head of people who send me their #1s and they did not end up at my program when they should have. And, you know, they're gonna be applying to fellowships and stuff. I mean, it's a small world, you know, so.
Yeah, I think the thing I would say is the reason we have the match process is so you don't have to try to work the game, right? Like it should work that you make your list from 1 to whatever number of like your top program to the bottom, and we make our list of our 1 to whatever 100, and the algorithm makes the match, right? Like we should not be moving you up and down depending on where we think we are on your rank list, because the match is going to work out in the end. So we're all human. It's like flattering when we get those, but we at CHA, we don't use it for internal medicine. I think a lot of medicine programs are probably, the numbers are a little different in internal medicine than some other smaller subspecialties, but I don't think programs need to see that, or it moves you up and down a lot.
Yeah, I'll just thank you, Rebecca. I'll just say in our program, while it's always nice to receive them, that it doesn't have an impact. We want the whole process to be done in a way that honors each and individual person in that kind of a standardized way. And so for that's the way we do it. We're 10 minutes past the hour, so let me close this session first by thanking my wonderful panelists. Can I get a round of applause for them? Speak on behalf of my colleagues here. Our goal here was to try to be as transparent as possible, pull the curtain back a little bit in terms of what this process means to us and what some of our kind of experiences and will hopefully help you kind of go through this process. I'll share with you something that a resident told me about this process after they had an opportunity to look back on it, which was they truly learned a lot about themselves as they went through this process, because the opportunity to actually reflect on what you want, where you want to go, the types of experiences that you want, the programs that are out there, because there are many programs, and many programs are going to have slightly different opportunities for you, really does give you a sharper focus about who you are and where you want to go. And so don't be surprised as you go through this process, as you especially go through the interview process, that you'll start to learn a little bit more about yourself and a little bit of things that are going to be more important or less important. Do I want to be in an urban setting, a suburban setting, a rural setting? Do I want to do an academic practice? Do I want to do something that's more in the community-based practice? A lot of those things will come into greater clarity as you continue to move through this process. And this really is a process about defining who you are and what is the best vehicle by which you will be able to move forward. And while sometimes the match list can feel very challenging and the like, almost, I will just say, for every student I've always worked with, it tends to work out, meaning that they find a program that they really are enjoying. And as soon as you're on the other side of that match, it's all about trying to start figuring out what it means to be an intern, what it means to be an intern in a collection of other folks that are just going through that same process. So on behalf of all the program directors here, we are so excited because, again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we know that you are the future of medicine. And we know many of you, we hope many of you will be here in Boston, but understand we are on your side. Whether you're here or whether you're in any other program, we want to be your partners, because the real goal here is to be able to take care of our patients in every way. And that's agnostic of where you end up training and where you choose to go. So if we can be of any assistance to any of you as you're kind of going through your journey, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll turn it back over to Alden.
I always love both of the resident and the program director panel, just because it's such an insightful opportunity. You hear really candid, honest, open answers. And hopefully you all were taking notes, but more importantly, taking to heart a lot of the messages that were given by the panelists today. So again, thank you to both the panels for being here. I'm going to transition to what's going to happen next. You get a break. And by a break, we're going to have about 45 minutes where we're going to have an exhibit hall. We're going to have some snacks, some drinks. You can take a bio break if necessary, and you can have a chance to chat with all of the folks that were here over the past hour and a half speaking with you. At 4 o'clock, we're going to go into our breakout rooms. Now, for those who are joining us virtually, what's going to happen is you're going to log back in using the same link that you have. And someone on our IT team will help to navigate you to the right room that you're